Whenever you invest in anything big, do small testing before, because that could be a make it or break it. The compliance training, remember the sexual harassment, code of conduct. But what people do, like next. They just do the quizzes, they guess, and that's it. How much do they actually learn from that? If you do something that big and it fails, you lose the trust and you lose the buy-in that you worked so hard to achieve within your organization. Once the buy-in is lost, it's like, okay, L&D is just wasting money and time. That's when you need L&D, because when you downsize, lots of people need to do even more than what they did before. You need to upskill them, and people don't understand that. Never just do a training without really thinking about what kind of business KPIs you're hitting to understand, okay, what is the problem that we're trying to fix?
Well, welcome everybody, and more importantly, welcome to our guest, Eli Bendet-Taicher. Yeah.
Yes, nice.
Okay,
it's good.
Not a bad pronunciation.
The name.
Yeah.
No, not
Okay.
pronunciation. One of the good ones.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Great start. So listen, Eli, I was looking at your background. I mean, I got to say, I was very impressed, and I will say shortly why. But I'd like you to introduce us to what is your academic background.
So it's funny because I started in engineering. So I was a nerd, the nerdiest kid at school you can think of. I was all nerdy about science and math, and for me that was something that was very exciting for me. I'm a problem solver, so for me, solving any kind of problems, it's exciting. And obviously with math and science, it's all about solving problems. So it came pretty natural to me to really kind of like find myself going into that direction. So I loved doing that. So, when I went to school, I went to obviously to learn science. I did the physical chemistry, and I loved that. And I saw myself as doing PhD and being a professor, and I love teaching. So I love seeing people learn something new. And I love to see that aha moments where people actually, oh my God, that clicks, right? And I love doing that. So for me, being a professor was kind of like my natural progression from doing a PhD, and I loved it to an extent, because by the end of the day, academia is also pretty limited in a way, and I'm a lifelong learner. I want to do other things. I want to learn more things myself, and kind of like I just by accident met someone that co-founded a tech company, and she saw what I did at NYU where I taught. And she's like, oh, maybe we should bring it to the corporate environment. Let's do like an academy, and you can be like the dean of that academy, which I love because I'm also very technical. I'm also a developer. So going to a tech company and teaching their technological partners of that company specifically about how to use their open source API codes that they were known for me, that was exciting. So I was creating kind of an academy for all the technological partner of that tech company. And I loved creating kind of like my own university, and to also learn new things. So I learned a new product, I learned new codes, and I learned how to teach those to the people who need to create product out of those API codes. So I fell in love with teaching others and also learning myself. So I wasn't the SME, the subject matter expert per se for this, but I needed to learn myself and then create training out of it. And that's the best way to learn, by creating also training. So then I learned that I cannot necessarily create training just for physics and chemistry. That's what I did, but also for things that are completely new.
I have to comment on the physics part of it, right? Because this is really what drew my attention in your profile. So it's obvious for everyone that you had a passion for learning and development that was brewing from a very early stage. But I just want to say, so physics. So I was in the science faculty myself, right?
Oh, wow.
And you had biology, chemistry, computer science, math, and then the untouchable, the physics people. They were the
and they gave me the worst courses to teach.
Right.
The worst courses,
right.
Like quantum mechanics, spectroscopy, thermodynamics, all like the things that all the students hated. But I was able to create something fun out of it. And that's why I won a few awards there, like literally getting all these courses that nobody wanted to take, everybody hated, to a point where it can be more relatable. I really brought
Mm.
a new direction of how to teach science, because science had been taught the same way for years, because science hasn't changed. It's not like computer science or marketing where new things are happening all the time. Courses, syllabus, they change all the time. In science, math, it's the same thing. But the thing is, people forget that the students change. Yes, the content doesn't change, but the students have changed. They're different people. And if you want them to connect and relate to what you're doing, you have to teach them in a different way than before.
Okay.
So I looked for ways to teach people science in a different way that can be really relatable to them and they can really fall in love with it.
And so here we're talking about somebody who was, arguably, from my perspective anyway, on top of the academic topic. Well, physics. From I was looking up at these folks for sure. And so we have somebody that was at the doctorate level, so somebody passionate about learning and development, and still decided to join the world of HR technology and learning and development, became clearly now a subject matter expert in the space. But why don't you talk us through how was your transition from academic, your desire to be a teacher, you have a passion to simplify, synthesis information clearly, to the corporate world in the function you are today? How did that happen?
I'm eventually a people's person. I think in academia it can be very lonely sometimes. And you're teaching your own course, you have the students change all the time. Yeah, some people have to do it. Some people they don't want to, they hate it. I just came, taught, and went. Obviously, I tried for me to make it more fun, and I try to change it every year. But it became very generic, very like the same old every year. You're teaching the same courses, the students change. And I'm a person who really wants to create a big impact with everything that I do. And I also want to learn new things, and I also want to evolve myself. So because I'm very technical, because I'm all into, tech and software, for me, kind of like going to the corporate world in the tech industry, for me, that was really, really exciting. And it's really about challenging myself of how to get the skill set I had as a professor to the corporate world. There are a lot of skills that correlate, but you have to learn a lot, because teaching in the corporate world is different. When we're talking about people that are not registered to take this class or whatever, these are people that you eventually need to help them be successful at what they do at their job. And that will result with better performance for the business and bring money to the business. By the end of the day, it's for-profit training, because you need to make sure that people know what they need to know and to do at their job in the best way, so they can perform in the best way, and that will result with business outcomes, good business outcomes, right? So there's a lot on the line. It's from onboarding to ongoing internal mobility, management training. These things are crucial for the success of the company. So I really wanted to have that impact, not just on the business, but also on people, because what you teach them, that will impact their career and their professional growth, right? So I'm impacting people's careers. I'm impacting people's passion. You know how many people in my team, in my own department, did not come from L&D, and they were internal mobility results to come to my department, and I had to teach them everything about L&D, and now they see themselves in L&D. And before then, they were customer success managers or customer support people, and now they're all about being an L&D professional. So I changed people's careers as well, and that's amazing.
It is amazing, Eli, and just so L&D, learning and development, right? You embraced the corporate world. You wanted to have an impact in the corporate world. So today, where are you? What organization is lucky enough to be working with you?
So I'm at Wix. Okay. Wix is a SaaS company. We are a software company that kind of a platform, software as a service, that you can build your own website in a very easy peasy way. You don't have to be a developer. You can be even like a 5-year-old. You can create a website in a very easy way. way for any purpose. It can be for your store, it can be for your business, it can be a blog, it can be anything. So anyone from small business to mid-sized business to even like big corporates that use Wix as their own website creator. So in that sense, I love that. I also work for a company that has a great solution for businesses to be successful as well. I always work at companies where I really believe in the product and the problem that it solves. The problem for me being there is that the product is so amazing, but it's also very complex to the business people to know how to troubleshoot, to know how to deal with it. It's a very vast product because there's a lot of people who can build their own website, right? It can be a hotel, it can be a restaurant, it can be so many different types of businesses, and each one has their own like kind of way to create their own website. So the product is very, very complex. So when we come and teach the product internally for our employees, that's a huge, huge, huge task to do and help them know exactly what to do with a product.
Is this how it started, learning and development at Wixby? Because I assume as the company grow, that there might not have been a learning and development function.
There was nothing. I came there 6 years ago, and the company has been, out there for a while. But what happened before is that people, as part of their job, also created training for their own people. So it was kind of like, I'm a manager, I'm going to train my people by myself. But there was no like a specific function that is dedicated to create onboarding, create ongoing development, product update trainings, all these kind of things. So when I got there, I had to really think about how do you create onboarding for the different types of roles within the company? How do you create specific management training for specific roles? How you do soft skills training, because it's not just about knowing the product, it's about the soft skills training is so crucial. It's called like the power skills, the human skills, how to communicate well, how to do negotiation, how to talk with a client, how to do active listening, asking the right questions. There's so many things beyond just learning the product, because you want to upskill people in a different skill set they need, again, to do the job in the best way. And if there are any skill gaps, you have to bridge them, because if you we are constantly doing needs analysis to understand what kind of skill set people need to do their job better, and we need to train them as quickly as possible, because if they're not being trained, that's money. Right. I mean, because if they're not productive, if they're not effective, that costs money to the company, and you want to do it in the fastest way possible, so you can bridge those gaps as fast as possible. And obviously, it's not just about training; it's about really evaluating the impact of the training. So it's not like, oh, let's do training on this, we deliver the training, and that's it. No, we want to see if there's any impact post-training. Do we see any behavior change? Do we see any change in productivity or efficiency of those people who we just trained? So it's not just being a passive function, a service function about, oh, we need this training, please create it for us. No, we need to be very proactive at understanding the business, looking at what's the needs are for the training, and finding those opportunities to upskill the people in the right skill set that they need, or the right knowledge that they need, in order to do a better job at what they do. So it's not just like, oh, I think we need training in Excel, or I think we need training in this and this and that. There is also that, but I see L&D as part of the business, because we impact the business in a way that many people don't really understand. And a lot of leaderships in other companies see it as a perk or as a nice to have, and not as an integral part of the business, which is unfortunate, by the way. So part of my passion is really to show how learning is part of the business. It is a revenue generating function.
And I think right now, with what's going on in the world, in the working environments, everybody hears about AI. Everybody, if I'm a business leader and if I'm a learning and development leader, I'm wondering, how can I upskills my workforce with all of these new capabilities that I know are going to make the team more productive. So today, Eli, if I am a learning and development leader, right? What's the best way to measure my impact on the business?
So first of all, never just do a training without really thinking about what kind of business KPIs you're hitting, right? So when you are creating a training, you need to understand, okay, what is the problem that we're trying to fix? Also, what the root cause of the problem is. Sometimes we don't really understand what the root cause of the problem. And then if training is even the solution, sometimes training isn't the solution at all. Sometimes it's a management thing. So once we understand the problem, we understand the root cause of the problem, and we figure out that training is the solution. So then we need to think about what we're expecting to change. What are the ROI or return of expectations, ROE? So what kind of behavior change we're looking at that will impact the business? Let's say, take for example, support people, right? If we want them, for example, to answer double the calls in the same amount of time, right? So that's a metric that we want to measure. Okay, so what kind of training we need to give them in order to be able to do double the calls in less time? What is the problem? Why it takes them longer? So it's really about investigating the problem and investigating what type of solution we need and what we need to train them on in order for them to be better at what they do, right? And then we need to understand what are the metrics we're going to follow even before, because we need to eventually compare the before and after. So what kind of performance metrics we want to look at? And then we see the situation today, and then, okay, we need to measure it X amount of time after, and then we see if there's any improvement post-training, right? So we have the pre-training metrics, we're looking at post-training metrics, and we try to understand if there's any improvement. Now, the fact that there is an improvement doesn't mean that only L&D was in charge of that improvement, right? Because there are other factors in mind, right? So we're also doing a lot of reflection surveys from the learners themselves and also from their managers, understanding what impacted their success post-training. Was it a training? Was it other resources? So we're trying to understand how much L&D contributed to the success post-training. So, and then we're trying to evaluate exactly how much we contributed to that. And also, if it didn't work out, what didn't work out, like what we can improve and do better. So we're very agile at whatever we do. And we always look at performance metrics, because by the end of the day, that's what you want to achieve. If you want to show leadership the value and the impact that learning and development bring to the table, you have to compare performance metrics before and after and show that L&D contributed to that success and by how much. And then you can put dollar signs next to it, which is always the best thing to do.
Learning and development, that means business, right?
Exactly. So, that's exactly what I'm talking about in my book.
So if I
learning that means business.
So if I understand correctly, right? If I'm a learning and development leader within an organization, the best way for me to have an impact is to work closely with all of the business function and understand what they do and how I can help them to hit their metrics. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. And I think the problem, what I'm seeing today in the HR and learning and development world, is that people are not connected to the business. They don't really understand the business. They don't understand the business strategy of the organization, and trying to understand, okay, what is the next year's strategy, what we're focusing on, and understand what kind of upskilling we need to do in order to bring the workforce to where they're supposed to be in order to achieve those business goals that the organization is trying to achieve, right? If you don't understand that, you will just not prioritize the right projects, or you may just do other trainings that are not moving any needles or the right needles, right?
Right.
Because sometimes I've learning development people, oh, let's do training on this, let's do training on that. And they do it just because they think it's needed, not because they did the research, not because they understand the business, not because they understand the impact. When you are choosing your projects, or when you prioritize the projects, you need to think about what would move the needle most for the business. So you need to think about like an entrepreneur, right? I'm my own business, my own organization within the organization, right? So if I had my own business, right? So I'm thinking about how much I'm investing versus how much I'm gaining, right? And how much I'm gaining is how much the business is gaining, right? So you're trying to think about that way. So if, let's say I'm doing a training, okay? And let's say it only impacts, I don't know, 50 employees, right? am I going to invest that much in the training that's going to be massive, lots of videos, lots of time? We need to think about even the format of the training. Is it going to be a video? Is it going to be a whole course? Is it going to be live training? And choosing the format and choosing how much time and workforce you're investing to create the training has to correlate with the impact. Not every training going to invest the same way. It really depends on the scale of it. Is it something that's a one-time thing, or it's going to, be a long-term thing that is going to impact future employees as well, right? So you need to think about how much money and time I'm investing in each training I'm doing based on the impact to the business and also how many employees it's impacting. Some programs are global. They're hitting a lot of people. Some are very small. For the small ones, should I invest or create the same major, vast training that I create for something that will hit 3,000, 4,000 employees? Obviously not. And these are the things we need to think about when we create any type of training, like a business. How much I'm investing versus how much I'm gaining, or how much I can show I'm impacting the business and how much value it brings to the business. So you really need to think about all these things even before you start creating anything and wasting time and money and resources. Sometimes you see L&D people that are creating this huge project, takes them months, and then they do it and then nothing happens. You don't see any change. This is also why a lot of the times before we do anything big that will have like resources, money, and a lot of time working on creating it, we're doing a small POC with a small group of people, proof of concept, with a control group, a test group. We're doing a testing and see, okay, will this have the impact that we expect? So we're doing it in a contained environment, and then we see if the ROI or the return of expectations were met, or maybe the program is wrong and we need to go in a different direction. So you learn a lot about the impact itself that you calculated or you predict that will be post training, and then you're thinking about, can I do it even better, right? Because you get feedback from the learners, you can improve those things. So whenever you invest in anything big, even though you believe in it and you think it's going to be huge impact, and it's going to be, do small testing before, because that could be a make it or break it. And the problem with L&D leaders that if you do something that big and it fails, you lose the trust and you lose the buy-in that you worked so hard to achieve within your organization. Once the buy-in is lost, it's like, okay, L&D is just wasting money and time. We don't need them. And this is when you see when there are layoffs, when there are cuts. HR and L&D are the first to be cut because they're seeing as a nice to have, a perk, a service, a money pit, just like a cost center, instead of being viewed as revenue generating function, as bringing impact to the business, something that's crucial and a must have when a company needs to pivot or a company even downsizes. That's when you need L&D, because when you downsize, lots of people need to do even more than what they did before. You need to upskill them. You need as much resources from L&D to upskill the right people when you're downsizing. And people don't understand that.
And if I'm an L&D leader right now, right? If I'm a learning and development leader right now, and I want to mean business, right? I want my impact on the organization to be something similar to how you position it, with a direct link to performance, right? It's not about the breadth and the width of your learning and development catalog. It's about the impact on the business, right? Yeah. Any documentation, any books you would recommend, perhaps, or anything you've done yourself that is available for people?
There's a lot of podcasts and books about it. I mean, there's a book that's really good, Hidden Value, by Dr. Keith Keaton, and it's really good. It's in the same idea as my book. My book is a little bit more hands-on, but his book is really, really good. But I think what people need to really do the research is do internal research. You need to understand the leadership. You need to understand the culture of the company, what would move the needle. Sometimes, when we're talking about healthcare, for example, in tech, the approach would be different. Finance would be different. You need to understand who are your audience. When you're a teacher, when I'm doing like a conference keynote gig, I'm trying to understand who the audience is, because you need to speak their language. if it's more Gen Zs, if it's more, adult people. So for example, if you have more of like a younger learners in your organization, what you would need, things are a little bit more like a TikTok, like a quick short videos, things that are like very more like techie and quick, and but if you have more of a grown up kind of like environment, oh, they like to read more, they like things a little bit more like a little bit more organized and like step by step and like very very and we see that when we're having a diverse group of learners in an organization, I learned that you need to create different types of learning outputs and different types of formats to kind of appeal to all audiences, right? So again, you really need to think about what would make people more engaged, because it's not training or learning is not a checkbox. It's like, oh, we did training, because if the training is not effective, if people are not engaged, they're not going to acquire the knowledge. They won't even apply what they learn. They're just, it's like the compliance training. You remember the sexual harassment code of conduct. But what people do, like next, 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 next. They just do the quizzes. They guess, and that's it. How much did they actually learn from that? And I don't blame them, because usually that type of content is so bland, is so boring. It's all like reading content, and like it's not interactive. It's nothing. Today you can do a lot of gamification, interaction within a training. You can do role playing. You can do a lot of things that are very very engaging. So the format of the training is so crucial as well, and especially when you tailor it to the right population. So it's not just about creating training and now they took the training, because it's not just you want them to take the training. You want the behavior change. It's like the Kirkpatrick, the level 3 and 4. You have level 1 is like, did they enjoy the learning? Then did they actually learn anything? Third, is there any behavior change? The fourth is like, okay, was there any business impact post that training? Okay. So you need to think about, is this training going to promote behavior change? Because that's what you're trying to do with every training. Or is it just going to go from one ear, leave from the other, and that's it? Yeah. So, and then you just wasted time, wasted money, and then it's just not effective. So when we're talking about thinking business, it's about doing the research, understands what works and what doesn't work in your company. I worked in my previous company I worked for, it was a different audience. I did things differently. I didn't just do copy paste. Oh, what I did here, I'm going to do in this company as well. You need to understand who the people are, the culture, what are the actual needs, what are the gaps, who is the population. Sometimes I work in like a global company. We have sites all over the world. Is training in Ukraine going to be exactly the same as training in the US? Not necessarily, because it's different culture, different background. They learn differently. Even their school system is different. I remember when we did training for people in Colombia and in Mexico, their school system is different. So they learn differently. So even though you want to create the same training for all, you need to create localization. You need to create local customizations for some of the trainings. Because by the end of the day, you want to create that impact. How you create that impact, you need the right engagement from your audience. So you really need to understand who you're creating training for. Who's the audience? And this is for every person who's doing any public speaking. You need to understand who the audience is. Is it people, what they know, what they don't know? What's their background? You really need to dive into those things, because eventually, to business impact, you need to create an engagement learning experience. And today you can do it very, very easily. And today you can do, all the AI solutions. There's a lot of great ed tech companies that allow you to create great videos, great interactive kind of trainings. A lot of role playing, which is very, very crucial to for the business roles. For example, if you're a customer success manager, if you're customer care, just learning about the product, and then, but you actually need to interact with a client, right? How do you do that? All these like AI coaching and AI practicing, these things are crucial. It's not just about learning knowledge or learning product. It's really about applying what you learn to the day-to-day. So how do you practice the day-to-day? So you also need to think about that. It's all about doing the right research internally to understand, again, the needs, the problem, the root cause of the problem. Yeah. What are the metrics of the performance we're hitting? And then what kind of training would be best appropriate to create that behavior change that we want?
Because you talk a lot about the importance of the business impact, the performance of L&D within the organization, do you have a set of environments that you privilege from a data perspective, right? So I assume that you are using dashboards. I assume that you are using data from all kinds of different
Yeah.
systems. How well can
Yeah.
you talk to us a little bit about the role of data in measuring
Yeah.
those impacts?
And again, that's a problem also today with HR and elderly people, that they're not very data driven and they're not data literate. And I think people need to not be afraid of data, because by the end of the day, only data is the objective thing that we have to make better business decisions. It's not about hunches. It's not about what I think or what I see. It's all about the data. So, for example, at Wix, we have KPI dashboards that we can see the specific KPIs for certain roles, and we also know what are the minimum they need to be at, right? So when we see people going down below the KPIs there should be, we're trying to understand, okay, every KPI is attached to a specific skill set or knowledge, right? So if someone gets below a certain KPI, okay, so that person needs a refresher in this type of training, or they need additional training in this and this and that. Once we do the training, we see if there's any impact on the KPI dashboard, right? And that's how you need to correlate between the learning data and the performance data. Once you see performance data goes down, you need to understand what kind of skill set it correlates to, and then what kind of courses or knowledge that we have is correlated to those skill set. And then you push those trainings to the person that went below a certain KPI. He takes a training, and then you see if there's any improvement in those KPIs. So again, for every course that we create, we need to target specific business KPIs that it's going to impact. What do we expect to impact post that training? We have all the business KPIs. Okay, this will help with these and these and these KPIs. So even in the back end, technically in our LMS, every course has a skill set attached to it in the back end, the metadata of it. So if you take this course, that will improve these and these and these skill set, and those skill set are correlated to specific business KPIs. So once you have that methodology, you can really in real time assess the needs analysis of the upskilling that is needed, and then push that training at the right time, and then making sure post-training that you still follow and see if there's any improvement. Once you see an improvement, you can correlate that training with that improvement. That means that this training helped the business.
So the L&D leader needs data to make decision. The L&D
and they need
leader
access to the data.
Needs
they need
access
to the data. And that's also a problem, because a lot of the time L&D don't own performance data, obviously. So they need to get the buy-in from those other leaders, sales, customer success, all these they need that data to be available to them. Why? Because if they had that data and they know how to read the data and then know what kind of story the data tells us, right? They can then suggest specific training. So we're not just waiting for VP sales to come to me and say, oh, we need training in this and this and that. No, we see the data and we suggest to you what type of training will help your department be more successful. So once we can really get that buy-in, and you need to build that relationship. And that's the thing. A lot of times a new L&D person comes, nobody wants to talk to him. For them, it's like, if I'm sales, wait, my people need to be offline for 2 hours to do learning. No, they should sell during those 2 hours, right? But if you show them that those 2 hours that will bring them ROI, they will be better salespeople and they will bring even more money, then you get that buy-in.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I think that the business world, the L&D world, would have great interest in positioning their impact, their action, and the way they go about it in a performance-driven way, the way you've positioned it. For me, in full transparency, today has been very eye-opening on how this function can impact the business. Perhaps to close it out and open for the next time we're going to be talking together, Eli. You mentioned hybrid team between AI and human in your last talk, your last keynote in Nashville. Can you give us an overview, a window into your vision of these teams and how an L&D leader can be prepared to bring their organization to that level?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. AI is revolutionizing everything, also for L&D. And some roles, to be honest, might be redundant, but it doesn't mean that those people who had those roles are redundant. What people need to understand today is how to work with AI as a coworker, basically, right? You need to think of the AI as an employee that is doing some of the heavy lifting, or hopefully most of the heavy lifting. So you need to understand what kind of skill set an L&D professional needs today, and all the things that the technical things that some people might have done, like, for example, videographers. Now we have so many amazing tools that can create videos in a matter of seconds and minutes that are very high quality. Content writers, or like doing QA for writing, AI can go over and fix all the grammar and everything, right? So some of the roles might be redundant, but we need to think about that it's not going to replace everyone, because by the end of the day, we're creating training for humans. We're humans creating for humans. What AI will help us is to reduce the friction of the day-to-day, all the heavy lifting, all the technical things. But by the end of the day, we are in charge of the strategy. We are in charge of decision making. AI can give us a solution, but sometimes the solution is not the right solution, right? So we are the brain that said, okay, great, AI went over the data, got me some suggestions, but I'm the professional person who can say, no, I think you're wrong. Maybe I should go to another route. So we are in charge of the judgment, of the decision making, right? We are professional enough to understand what works and what doesn't. We understand humans better than the AI, at least for now. I don't know what's going to happen in a few years, but for now, we're still in a good place. So a lot of the things, with content creation, they used to take weeks and weeks to create videos and create all these, you have all these learning authoring tools. These things can create content very fast, which is amazing, because we want to create content faster, because we want to meet the learner as fast as we can to bridge those knowledge and skill gaps as soon as possible, because that's money, right?
Yeah.
So we can reduce in the workforce in terms of content creation, but who decides what kind of content we want to create? Who decides what's best for the audience? Who is looking at performance and understanding what exactly the problem is? What's the root cause of the problem? What kind of metrics we're looking at? And then looking at the metrics again and see if there's any improvement. Who's making the decision of, oh, this video is good, this thing is not good? This is us. And we understand learners in the best way possible, and we know what works and what doesn't work. But again, AI will replace some of the roles we have today. And if you are an L&D leader or an L&D professional today, you don't need to be afraid of AI. You need to learn how to work with AI. How this, like, okay, AI is doing this, and then I'm taking this thing and I'm doing this and this with that. So it's a whole different approach. It's a whole different mindset of what is my role now. So the roles and responsibilities of L&D leaders are going to change, and they're going to evolve. And we need to understand AI, how to work with it. And again, really think about AI as just another employee who does all the heavy lifting for us.
Yeah.
But we are the leaders. We are the decision makers. We know what works and what doesn't. But we also have a responsibility, to be honest, to my organization, say, yeah, maybe I need to cut a few people because this and this can replace a few people on my team. And I'll be honest, that will happen. I mean, and I think it's already happening, right? If it can be replaced by AI, I don't know, but it doesn't mean that every person is redundant. Again, it's all about, am I upskilling myself to the real world of today, to the new era of AI? So we're responsible to upskill ourselves to be ready and to have the skill set needed to work with those machines.
Well, Eli, if I am an L&D leader, you're certainly somebody that I want to keep a close eye on, and you're certainly somebody that I want to follow. I greatly enjoyed our talk today. I learned a lot about L&D, and I look forward to discussing with you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was fun.